Hey everybody. So today I'm going to show you how I do this, these sort of constellations and writing freehand on my word bearers tanks and units. I do a little bit of mix of both. I guess I use the decals and do some freehand, but I've had people ask about this in my Rhino video, so I feel like I've perfected it as well as I can. So I figured I would show you how I do it. It's really easy. All you need is one of these white gel pens, these jelly rolls, and then you're going to need a makeup sponge. You get this from the dollar store. I've cut this one up to make it easier to use in tight spaces. And you're going to need some water. I really like these Citadel water pots, by the way. They're really excellent. You should definitely buy one. All right, so to start with, we're going to take a small chunk and dunk it in the water. I'm using pretty clean water here. We're going to wring it out so that it's just damp, not wet. All right, now we're going to uncap the pen, and we're going to rub it on the sponge a little bit to get the ball rolling. And what happens here is the moisture really helps with the flow of the ink. Otherwise, it can be really difficult to write on a very hard surface like this. I'm sure anyone who's ever tried to sign a receipt for a credit card transaction knows what I'm talking about. If you're doing it on like a hard steel surface, it's much harder than doing it on a softer, like paper backing, for example. So we're just going to go here and kind of scribble some nonsense. I'm just copying the style of the Colchisen runes that come on the Chaos Space Marine decal sheet. Trying to do it about the same size, just to keep it consistent. I like consistency. And if you're really careful and slow, you can draw some nice straight lines and just do some weird little intersections and, I don't know, evil geometry, I guess. That's one thing I really like about the word bearers is just all the crazy scripture and stuff they write on every available surface. I think it's cool. Now I'm using a combination of the decals from the decal sheet here and freehand. But I've really gotten more comfortable with doing the freehand writing on this Predator tank. I still did do a few decals from the sheet, but I may end up just doing the rest of this with freehand. Except for the really tiny writing, that one's harder to make it look good. But the reason I like this gel pen is because it's a really fine tip. It's a much finer tip than, say, like a paint pen, like from AK Interactive. That's a nice product, I understand, but it's not as sharp as this. And the one thing that kept me from using this more in the past, before I figured out the sponge trick, is it got really hard to write because you'd get dry spots, and it was very frustrating to do. But once I figured out that you just need to keep the surface of the ball a little bit moistened, then it became much easier. And it still can be tricky. Like this spot here took me a few tries, but you just go slow and re-wet when you need to, and just keep going over it. And sometimes it's the angle of the attack too that makes it work or not work. I find you need a somewhat perpendicular angle to the surface to make it work. If it's too shallow of an angle, I don't think that the ball can really get much traction, and you need it to roll to be able to distribute the ink. By the way, anyone who hasn't read any of Aaron Dembski-Bowden's Word Bearers books, I highly recommend you check them out. There's like genuinely good books, not good Warhammer books, but like really enjoyable. The first Heretic and Betrayer are just both phenomenal. Also Night Lord's trilogy, if you haven't read that. Basically anything that guy touches is gold. And so here I'm kind of just carrying some of these lines through, and you can sometimes use an object to keep it straight. That can be tricky on a surface like this where it's interrupted so much by little bumps and recesses. I'm using, where I can, I'm trying to use spare bases to be a sort of a guide to make my circles around. It doesn't always work, but generally it'll at least give you a good start, and then you can kind of fill it in. And then I tried doing a new thing with this one where I'm carrying the lines over from one plane to another. And it's a little wonky, it's a little weird, but I think it mostly kind of works. And the thing I think you always have to remember too with Warhammer is all this stuff is going to be 3 feet away. And what's really important is that it just gets painted, right? I mean, you can have one miniature that's painted exceptionally well, and I think anybody will be impressed with that at any distance. And you have 10 minis that are painted pretty well, and I think that's impressive. And if you have a whole army that's just painted to a reasonable standard with a base on it, like, I think that always looks so good. And I'm gonna beat this drum. I think we should only play with painted models. That's just me anyway. I think it's a respect to your opponent thing to help with their immersion in the game, and it's just more satisfying. And plus, it's good motivation to paint faster, right? And here I am trying to carry it over. And this spot is a little too tight to stencil with that base, even though it's only like a 28 mil or 23 mil, 25 mil base. It's one of the small ones anyway, for like cultists and things like that, I believe. But this spot here, I can kind of grab it with this base. You kind of have to futz around with it sometimes. There we go. It's a little bit tricky. And again, I think, like, even if it's not perfect, if you're consistent over the surface of the thing, like, it can look impressive. Anyway, that's all I got for you. If you have any questions or thoughts, please leave them in the comments. I will get back to them as I always do. And look forward to seeing you guys next time.